Maybe longer than a second. Okay, awesome. The recording is now started. All right. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. Hopefully you can jump on the Nearpod and follow along with us. I just shared the link in the chat, so please jump on there, and that will help us as we're kind of going through there. Yeah, I'll have to look at the pretest there. So just so you know, everybody has been having questions a little bit about the pretest, okay? And so that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go show you what's going on there. Okay, so let me share my screen. All right. Okay, everyone. So what you do, if you go to your course, which will be right here, as you see, I have the recordings up at the very beginning. I put it on the announcements, okay? So if you miss it, you can watch the recording here, or you can go into content, and once you go into content, you'll see all of the lessons and everything that we're going to be going over, okay? Oh, the laugh, that's the instant message thing that all the teachers communicate with. And I put it on silent, but that notification is just, the laughing's the annoying one. And it never completely goes off. So sorry, there was a laugh there. All right, so on the pretest here, if you go here, all you got to do is go to the pretest right here and take it, and you get participation points for going on the pretest. So just basically, it's not very many things. You just take it, whatever you get on there, I'll kind of see where you're at, and then I'm able to be able to go in and kind of see what I need to look at and stuff like that. Lesson 1 is what we did last time that we were here in class. We have the welcome video, the other lessons on there. Here's the Nearpod link if you missed it. The lesson 1 quiz, that's where you want to do, and then you'll have that on there, okay? So those are the 2 things you should have been doing so far, okay? I do have to manually go in and add your participation points for doing your pretest. So yesterday I went in and zeroed out everybody who didn't do their pretest. So if you have a bad grade right now, it's probably because of that, okay? So I will go in, do it sometime today. At the end of the day, I'll go in and I'll update that, okay? So no worries there. Just make sure you get that pretest done and have those things started. Okay, any other questions on what needs to be done? Okay, we just went over what you need to do, okay? You need to go in, you need to make sure you do these 2 things. The pretest needs to be done. This is, once again, the pretest needs to be taken. It doesn't matter the score you get on your pretest. You just get participation points for it. I need to go in and manually add that for you, okay? So I'll do that at the end of today. You also need to do the lesson 1 quiz. If you didn't get a good grade on the lesson 1 quiz, then retake that one again, okay? Yes, correct. That's what you need to do. Thank you. All right, I just put the link in the chat one more time. Okay, let's move on with our lesson today, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to be going over natural disasters today, and that goes to the theme of geography we talked about before, human and environment interaction. Just so you guys remember, this lesson will be recorded for learning purposes, and it will be posted so others that weren't able to access it, okay, can still see it. Expectations real quick. 1, make sure you're following along with the Nearpod lesson. You use the chat tool respectfully and appropriately, and then also respond to questions and instructions the first time as we're going out there on Nearpod. Okay, here is our lesson objective. Okay, given a list of natural disasters. Okay, so you're going to do this in the OLS. You get to choose a natural disaster, and you get to research a current event where it happened last, and basically how it affected the environment, the people, and all that stuff. Okay, so think of it as we're going through this lesson about what kind of natural disaster you want to research. Okay, so for example, if you guys have been looking at the news recently, there was a hurricane, I believe it was Hurricane Ida, that just hit Louisiana. Okay, last reports that I heard that one person had passed away, that there are so many people without power now in Louisiana. So that would be something that you could research, right? So you want to research hurricanes. You talked about how this Hurricane Ida, how it developed, how it came, and how it affected the people and the environment in which it did it. Okay, you do not have to do hurricanes. You can do something else. So that's what we're going to be going over today, is different natural disasters, and give you some ideas there so you can do this assignment. Okay, so I'm going to ask you right now on the Nearpod, what are natural disasters? Okay, an earthquake, that's a natural disaster. Disasters caused by nature, correct. Okay, tornadoes, okay, tornadoes. A lot of tornadoes there. Okay, natural disasters are natural events that hurt people and the environment. It can be in a drastic way. Okay, tsunamis, okay, good. Volcanoes, storms. A natural event. Oh, some of them are moving around, so it's hard to read them. Natural events that cause erroneous amounts of harm or damage. Okay, very good. It looks like we got that. Events that occur in nature that are harmful to humans. Okay, and even if they're not harmful to humans, right, they would still be called a natural disaster. If there's something that happened, it could affect animals, it could affect the environment, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Things that happen on Earth, like hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, etc. Very good. Natural destruction. Okay. I always have a lot of people, right, that like kind of natural disasters. Okay. Not like them, but are interested in how they happen, right? On what they do and how it really kind of affects people, right? Okay, natural dilemmas, very good. Avalanches, snowstorms, landslides, yep. Some of those not so common ones that are kind of fun to just research, there. Okay. Okay, so what we got to think of real quick, okay, is the world is always changing. Natural disasters are changes that are so great that they may cause damage to the shape of the land or the lives of the people or other living things. Great changes happen deep inside the earth and on its surface. Okay, the changes on the outer part of the earth happen because of the different kinds of weather. Okay, so there's so many different natural disasters, and we're going to go over some. Okay, here are some ones that may be kind of common. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, cyclones or hurricanes, avalanches, flood, drought, forest fires, bushfires. That's something that's been very big. And we think about how it affects us. For example, the fires that are in Oregon and California right now, all of that smoke is coming over and it's collecting on the Wasatch Front because it can't get over the mountains, right? You wonder why it's so smoky and you know, myself, when that happens, my throat gets really sore and stuff like that. So there are issues, right, that that we need to kind of play out there. Okay. All right. What we're going to do, we're going to watch a little video about some natural disasters and what they are. So here we go.
Natural disaster.
Okay, were you guys able to hear that real quick? Yes, okay, good.
Disasters are part of the way the planet works. In the ideal world, we would all live in places that aren't affected by natural hazards. We wouldn't live near coastlines. We wouldn't live along the San Andreas Fault in California. We wouldn't live underneath the volcanoes in the Pacific Northwest. But we live where our homes are. I mean, those are the places that are important to us. And then there are many people that don't have choices. The museum is presenting this exhibit to describe these events to people so they have a better understanding of earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, and tornadoes.
All right, for those that are watching it on their side, okay, which are the 4 natural disasters just mentioned? Most relevant to living in Utah, okay? Okay, looks like most of you are putting the right one here, which is good. And some of you may not be following along, so I understand, but very good. Volcanoes would probably be the second, wouldn't you think? I think so. Like you think about the, you know, like we're not too far away actually to Yellowstone, right? Which is basically a super volcano. So that would be the second one I'd worry after earthquakes. Okay. Tornadoes would be the third. I mean, we've had a couple tornadoes in Utah, not many at all. And then hurricanes would be last. That we shouldn't have to worry about hurricanes. If you can't do it all the way, that's okay.
But more than that, to begin thinking about the risks associated with them. As climate warms, we expect there to be more severe storms, more severe droughts, more wildfires, and to some extent, over the last decade, we've seen just that. There's no way we're going to avoid the natural hazards on a dynamic Earth. But there are certainly ways that we can learn to live with it to mitigate the risks to society.
All right. So we are doing our best to continue to understand how these natural disasters work and how we can like kind of eliminate there. Yeah, some of you guys are talking about how you remember some tornadoes and also earthquakes that have happened. I remember the one, yeah, was it last year? I think it was last year. Man, it's been a while ago that it caused damage. Luckily, nobody was hurt during it, but it was pretty. Yeah, and I live quite a ways away from West Valley and Magna, and I still felt it fairly well, right? Yep, and the aftershocks that happened as well. Yep, very good. Okay, so here are some ones that you may be familiar with. Volcanoes are, and remember what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to think about which natural disaster, or it doesn't even have to be some of the ones that we talked about, but what natural disaster we want in order to research and do our assignment on. Okay, so it could be any of these. So volcanoes, volcanic eruption, is spewing out gases and hot lava from the opening in the Earth's crust. Pressure from deep inside the Earth forces the ash and gas and molten rock to the surface. Used to live near one in Washington. Yeah, so in Washington, a famous one was Mount St. Helens. It was so much it just blew the top right off the mountain there, and yeah, it just covered everything with ash. Okay, earthquakes. An earthquake is a violent shaking of the ground. Sometimes it is so strong the ground actually splits apart. When part of the earth, called plates, move against one another, a giant shock wave is forced upwards towards the surface, causing the earthquake. And Utah is right along a fault line, so that's why we are so susceptible to these earthquakes. Okay, some other ones here: cyclones, hurricanes, tornadoes, or typhoons. A cyclone is a fierce storm with strong winds that spins around in a giant circle. During a cyclone, trees are uprooted, buildings can be destroyed, and cars can be damaged. What's the difference between a cyclone and a hurricane? Does anybody know? Not taking a chance to go to Florida. Okay, so somebody said water. I guess that's the difference between tornadoes and typhoons, right? Is water. Correct. So somebody said on there, so I didn't catch it because the chat just keeps moving up, is it depends on what hemisphere you live in, right? You live in the northern hemisphere, you're going to be having hurricanes. On the southern hemisphere, they call them cyclones, okay? So it depends on where you're at. They're basically the exact same thing, but they're just called by a different name, okay? Okay, an avalanche. This is something that's kind of common around Utah, so I put them in here. And unfortunately, in one of my classes, I had somebody's neighbor actually passed away one time when we were just like a week or two before an avalanche when we talked about it. So basically, avalanches, they're movement of snow or ice and rock down the mountainside. Avalanches happen very suddenly and can move very fast, up to 124 miles an hour. Avalanches can be caused by snow melting quickly, snow freezing, melting, then freezing again. Okay, so I don't know if all of you guys, if you've been in the mountains skiing or snowmobiling or something like that, but avalanches are something that you really need to look out for and just take carefully, especially when you're here in Utah. Okay, another one that happens quite a bit is a flood. It's caused by an overflooding of water, which covers the land that is usually dry, okay? So when we're in like this drought that we're kind of in Utah, everything gets so dry. But if we have an excess of water, there's been quite a bit of flooding that's happened since we had such a dry summer, and then all this water comes down at once. And it causes flash floods is what they call. But then they also have flooding when the sea level rises too much. So that's another thing that could be caused by a strong waves or tsunami that comes, or an earthquake, right? It happens in the sea. So a lot of things with flooding. Another thing is drought. So this is kind of interesting. In 1968, a drought began in Africa. A child born during this year would have been 5 years old before they ever saw rain. Okay, so drought, it's very significant, so we got to think about that. So not having enough water, having too much water, I mean, we need a good balance between all of it. Here's one that is, I think, affecting us quite a bit in Utah, as I talked about before, the forest fires. When there is too much deadfall. And everybody thinks that, fire is always lit by careless people. A lot of them aren't always lit by careless people, right? A lot of it is caused by lightning strikes or, something to that effect. Okay. So these things happen quite a bit. And you can see the raging fires that are devastating, Oregon, Washington, and California at this time. Okay. Yeah, you had a mountain fire near you yesterday. Yeah, I mean, this is something that we're going to continue to deal with, especially as the population. And one of the things we're going to talk about in here is we're going to go over what's called population pyramids, and like how can we sustain the population? And Utah is growing so fast that how can we sustain the population and still keep something like the air quality, right? So we're talking about the smoky sky. We also have the inversion that always happens in the winter. Okay. So all of that is something that we need to consider, and how do we effectively be able to interact with the environment and the environment interact with us in a healthy way. Okay. I thought this was kind of interesting. But this is going to go over 2020 was a heck of a year, right? I think everybody knows about COVID. COVID, we could call that as almost like a natural disaster that happened. But this is going for 2020 was garbage. If I agree with you, this is going to go. They put this video out in March or April, but it basically of 2020, and it shows all of the natural disasters that happened just from the beginning of 2020 until 3 months later. And I think you'll be surprised. There's so many natural disasters that happen all the time, some that we don't even realize that happen. So here we go.
Okay, I'm just trying to check the intensity or the speed of the wind, and I'm applying full strength to try and open this. It's a bit hard. Oh God.
All right. So as you can see, it's crazy that the force and the amazing ability of nature. We really got to kind of respect it, right? It's crazy. So okay, so we have it on the Nearpod here. What is the most recent natural disaster you can remember hearing out? Okay, so hurricane, forest fire, COVID, fire, hurricane. Okay, yeah, the hurricane seems to be most recent. A war in Afghanistan. So the war would not be a natural disaster. That would be something like a homemade or human disaster, right? Somebody that, doing that kind of stuff. Okay, hurricane. So it is hurricane season right now. So we're going to see a lot of things. Man-made. Thank you, Matt, for putting the words in my mouth that I needed to talk about. But what you can do, right, for your assignment, if you remember, okay, you need to choose one natural disaster to research, okay? Indicate where in the world this natural disaster happened last, and at least 75 words describe what the natural disaster did to the environment and where it happened, right? So how it affected people, how it caused damage, all that stuff. So where you find this, okay, you go to your course, you click on course content, you're on lesson 2, and you're going to go into this assignment right here, okay? So if you go to you click onto the assignment, yours is going to be a little bit different than mine. I'm just going to preview it for you. But you start it like this. And it's going to ask you these questions. What natural disaster did you research, okay? The natural disaster you choose, in which country did the natural disaster most recently occur? Okay, so you can talk about it. And then you need to describe what happened to the environment, the people, everything around it, okay? So that is your assignment for this week. It will not automatically grade. I need to go in and manually grade it, so it's going to take a little bit of time for me to go through these and update them. But that is our assignment and lesson for this week. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, if you do, you can always contact me. I'm here. Those that haven't done the pre-test yet or the first lesson 1, make sure you do that as well. And that's all I got for you today. Appreciate you guys coming. Have a great day.